is case 47, Tosotsu's three barriers. It's kind of a complicated koan. In the Renzai system, they leave this koan for the end of koan study. In Soto, for whatever reason, it's near the beginning, more as a testing koan for to see how deeply you penetrated into Mu, the first koan. So it's an interesting different perspectives from the different schools. Anyway, the main case. Master Tosotsu Etsu set up three barriers and asked his students, the purpose of making one's way through grasses and asking a master about the subtle truth is only to realize one's self-nature. Now, you venerable monks, where is the self-nature at this very moment? When you have attained your self-nature, you can free yourself from life and death. How will you free yourself from life and death? When the light of your eyes is falling to the ground. When you have freed yourself from life and death, you know where to go. After your four elements have decomposed, where will you go? Mumon's commentary. If you can say three turning words about these barriers, you will be the master of wherever you may be, in close contact with the real essence in all situations. If you have not yet reached this stage, gulping down your food will fill you up quickly, while chewing well will make it more difficult to become hungry again. The verse. In one consciousness, we see the whole of eternity. Eternity is nothing other than right now. If you see through this one consciousness at this moment, you see through the one who is seeing right now. Okay, so just a quick walkthrough. The three barriers are seeking one's true nature, overcoming life and death, and where do you go after death? Those are the three barriers. And Mumon seems to try to indicate that you can answer this koan in 3 words. I don't know whether that's true or not. Maybe, possible. But there are 3 situations, they tend to be, since Buddhism tends to be the spiritual practice of last resort. People tend to come to Buddhism after they've tried everything else and nothing else works. So you're at this very anxious point in your life. It's like, okay, what's true? What's real? What am I doing here? What's my purpose in life? These are the questions that a lot of Buddhist students come to ask their teachers, and that's what he's referring to in the first barrier, making one's way through grasses. Grasses are delusions or things that are kind of, it's hard to tell. Since most of the monasteries were out in the forest or the mountains somewhere, there was all kinds of undergrowth that was often had to be cleared, and it was only cleared for the buildings. So anytime you left the monastery or traveled anywhere, and everything was traveled by foot, you had to go through the grasses. And where the grasses were maintained, the grasses got quite tall. So tall grasses were an indication of just making your way through delusions. But where is the self-nature? Who am I? That question that pervades most people's spiritual journey. That usually starts with their spiritual journey. Is where is that self-nature? What is that self-nature, and where is it right here, right now, in this particular moment? And once you've got that, once you figure out what that true nature is, then the question is, how do I live, and how do I die? And how do I get past this concern about life and death? Because if you're able to ask the question, how am I living and how am I dying, you're alive. And why are you spending time on this question while you're alive? And once you get to the point of knowing that you're going to die, how then do you do that? And that's the second barrier. How will you free yourself from life and death when the light of your eyes is falling to the ground? Third barrier, when you freed yourself from, usually people you go through the 5 stages of grief, and the last one of those stages, not that that's ever linear, because you go back through those stages many times when you're grieving, but you finally get to the point of acceptance, is that kind of the last step. So after you've accepted your life and death, whether you're actually, dying for real or know that you're going to die at some point, as we all do know on some level. After the 4 elements have decomposed, 4 elements refer to the Chinese, ancient Chinese biology. The 4 elements: earth, wind, fire, air. Okay, good. No, wind is air. Earth, water, fire.
Yes. Look over there. Water, fire, air, and earth.
And earth. Okay. Those 4 elements. So the in Chinese biology, they thought that everything, your entire being, was made up of those 4 elements. So that's what he's referring to. After your 4 elements have decomposed, after your body's gone, where do you go? Well, and that's plural. So there's several ethers. I'm not even going to attempt to answer that question. So the fact of life and death, the fact that we have this essential nature, is already there, already given. The fact that we live and die this physical life and this physical death, already there. What is it that gets in the way of actually realizing what that is? And it usually comes down to what it is we believe. I mean, our culture, obviously they're cultures, because it's the United States is made up of so many cultures and so many different beliefs. And, and it's hard to really, maybe even impossible to divorce yourself from those cultural beliefs. I can say that I don't believe in God or heaven or hell, but am I, in my everyday language, I'm using colloquialisms that express those beliefs or those biases that are within this culture that I'm raised in, that I was taught, to believe, whether or not I consciously accept that. So those things are, because these things in and of themselves are not barriers, but getting past all the delusions, getting through the grasses to what they are truly made of, and how they are being expressed in every single moment of every single day, that's the barrier. So it's really one barrier for all of these. Tosotsu, such a difficult name, has set up for consideration in koan form. So I understand that why this would be left to the end of koan study, because these are things we don't usually want to think about on a daily basis, our life and death, and at the same time, why it's early in the Soto system, because if you've really penetrated into Mu and have expressed Mu, you've already answered this koan. So where we get tripped up is Mu being expressed in different terms, in different words, and being forced to, because everything is the answer. If you've answered Mu, you've answered all the koans. but can you express mu in the infinite different ways that it can be expressed in the different situations that are set up in all the subsequent koans? That's really the test, because everything is not a nail and you're not just a hammer. You have to be able to walk into any situation and meet that situation as it is and take care of that situation as it is, and not just, moo it to death, which tends to be, there are people who get stuck, on that particular koan, moo, and think that, and it is true that it is the answer to everything, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a variety of ways of expressing, an infinite variety of ways of expressing what mu is. So, how does mu express itself in this koan? And at the end of koan study, what is your essential nature? What is your life and death? And after life and death, after you're dead, where do you go? Where will you go? Aiken Roshi's commentary talks about going to a friend who was in the process of dying. She had cancer, and she asked him, "Where am I going?" And he answers her, "Wherever your feet point you to." And so she died with that on her lips, saying that, wherever my feet point me to is where I will go. Certainly, there is a, what's the chemical that the brain releases at death?
Serotonin?
No, it's D. It starts with a D. It's
No, DMT.
DNT. DNT. DMT.
I think it's DMT.
It's an MT. Yeah. So a very strong hallucinogenic.
Yeah.
And so because people will.
You could take some now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very serious but yeah, I don't know if it's the same as a toad one.
No.
Similar.
No.
Like, come on.
Or you could just wait till you get it naturally.
Be patient, right?
Be patient.
I must seek enlightenment
Now, yeah.
If you have $50.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know this, but they believe that this is released so that you see what it is you want to see at the time of your death. So that whatever it is you believe you will hallucinate that as being what's happening to you after death. No one's come back to tell us about this. Or people have come back and said they've seen various things, and maybe they've gotten to that point of being dead enough that the DMT is released. But no one has ever fully died and come back and said, well, what's there after the hallucinations are gone? What is there? So we don't know.
There's a whole subculture that's called NDEs, near-death experiences.
Oh, yeah.
People talk about.
Yeah, but it's still near. It's not dead. Yeah, yeah. So ultimately, there's no one that's been dead for any substantial amount of time. I'll put it that way. That has come back and actually told us what actually happens on the other side. So as far as we can tell from this side, there's not much going on after you're dead.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some nothingness. These are questions that people ask, and serious considerations that need to be dealt with. Thus, they show up as barriers in our life because we get distracted by these questions, and with this very strong need to answer them, to find some way of resolving that within ourselves. Thus, the barrier, because it stops us from living. It stops us from really being present in the moment, because we're obsessed with, well, who am I? Or we're obsessed with, I'm going to die, and we're obsessed with, well, now that I've settled the whole death question, what's after death? Well, why? Why worry about all that? However, in order to get to the point of no longer striving for these things, you've got to strive and go through it. Take yourself through the barriers. Trying to just ignore it or be glib about it or just say, it's nothingness or whatever is not going to be ultimately satisfying. And if you don't go through these barriers, how then can you help those who are going through these barriers? Because ultimately, it's not about you. It's about you taking care of whatever situation is in front of you. And people are just, constantly dealing with applied meaning. It's not that it has not that anything has any intrinsic meaning, but we add meaning to these situations all the time. And sometimes these meanings are helpful, sometimes they're not. But ultimately, none of it means anything at all, which can be quite distressing to people. So once you take away that meaning, what's left? So this is it's a very tricky and very important thing to consider. And even if you feel you've satisfied this consideration for yourself, how do you help others that are going through that? Or how do you not do harm to others? Because certainly I remember having this conversation with this kid at the open mic, and I very glibly just said, he goes, well, what's the meaning of life? And I said, 42. He goes, what does that mean? I said, life doesn't have any meaning. He burst into tears. I mean, and I thought, okay, ooh, not good. Not a very compassionate answer. Because he needed something. He needed life to mean something. And there are people who, of course, the ultimate, nihilistic response is, well, if it means nothing, then I'll just kill myself. But instead of seeing it as the ultimate freedom, because for me, the fact that it means something means I can make it mean anything I want at any given point. And if that meaning doesn't work, I can just change it. And if that doesn't work, just keep changing until it does. Or operate in it in the freedom of nothingness, which is the ultimate freedom. It doesn't need to mean anything at all. Because, sometimes the meaning I'm giving it, like I'm too tired to get out of bed and do things, that doesn't work very well. It's like, okay, because definitely after I had both the COVID and my flu shot on Wednesday, on Thursday, I was like, life is hell. And it took me a while to remember, oh yeah, COVID and flu at the same time. I told myself not to do that, but I was just miserable, because and they warned me the COVID shot would be very sore. So that was my left. Instantly I knew, okay, none of this has any meaning. Get the fuck up. Take some Advil and move on. So these Advils, less autistic causing than Tylenol. But yeah, every day people are looking for a reason to get out of bed. And if you don't have a practice that gives you the ability to do that without meaning, then that becomes impossible. And people have, and I was just reading it was a horrible YouTube video about this. This was in the UK. The student that was accidentally given the wrong grade for a class and told that he wasn't going to graduate, and he committed suicide. Then they found it in England somewhere, I don't know which school. This became newsworthy because was like a month later, the school tells the parents that they were wrong, that he did graduate, that they had someone, and then the parents kind of pushed it because they discovered that this giving of wrong information was a systemic problem with the school. So they don't know how many people have been given the wrong information. This kid, the student, happened to have obviously a bad reaction to what that meant, what he was making that mean for his life. So they have now pushed for reforms, and they won their case, and the school is being required to fix that. Because if you have placed all that meaning into a particular outcome and you don't get that outcome, then what? Yeah. Well, one would hope that when college students, their prefrontal cortex developed at that age, so we're making decisions, and we're adults and making decisions about our lives that
Legally, you're an adult.
legally,
You're an adult, but
yeah,
you're not an adult.
your brain,
He's 25, right?
yeah, you're 25, 26, the brain doesn't finish developing, is that right? Yeah. So
Most people around that age, you can drastically happen.
about 26, yeah. Well, the brain
Look back.
The brain
what
comes-
happened around that time.
yeah, the brain comes online.
Like, oh, shit. That's
Fully
been-
formed.
That was a stupid decision. Right?
But unfortunately, there are consequences to decisions that are made prior
Yeah.
to that level of maturity. So very difficult. But yeah, and at least I remember every year when I was at Cal State Northridge, this was late 70s, early 80s, there was the one tall building on campus. I think it's probably still the tallest building on campus. The Sierra Towers. It's 7 stories. At least one person jumped off that building every year. Usually it was one of the Asian students. And, horrible that, there's so much pressure and so much meaning attached to things that ultimately are meaningless, that have very drastic, effects on people. So how do we help with that? Because we can't just tell people, well, you can't, and then, you can tell people, oh, life is meaningless, and just live about that. And then you live with the consequences of that. So there's got to be a compassionate way to do that. And I think one of the best ways is to put yourself in that situation. That's what is the ultimate form of empathy, which is what koan study is all about, is putting yourself in the situations that are in those koans and responding as if you are these people, or you're the person seeking these answers. You're the person who wants to really, truly, not just know intellectually, but experience fully what these koans are talking about. So that's what this koan is calling for you to do, is truly experience this deep, abiding need to know who you are, to know what your ultimate self nature is, your intrinsic nature is, to really understand what is life and death, to really know what that means or doesn't mean, and then what happens after death. Where will you go? What will you do with all the stuff that you've done in your life after you're gone? It sounds simple, but remembering that, yes, there are important questions to answer, but not just for yourself, but for anything and everything that you may encounter, anyone and everything that you may encounter. These are very important questions, as a whole, which is why we have so many beliefs about this. In almost every religion, it tries to address this very disturbing question. pick your opiate or religion. there is, I don't know any religion that doesn't, and not that I know them all, that doesn't deal with life and death on some level. So certainly the religion I was raised in, and I had this discussion with my nephew, who's now the new generation of Seventh-day Adventist ministers. Because I asked him, are they still teaching it's called eschatology, end of time events, the study of end of time events, because they have this bizarre list of things that's supposed to happen when Jesus returns. I mean, literally, people are dying and being resurrected 3 times, before it's all over. And I I looked at him and going, how are they teaching that? Because that was a rather, for me, it was disturbing for my classmates, because there were a lot of my classmates are, and where we're then and still are very religious. I just thought it was the most bizarre thing ever that there is this God who would treat people that way. When people took it,
It's not really surprising.
go ahead.
I mean, genocide did everything on the planet.
Well,
Apart from 2 examples of each kind.
yeah,
Jealous, angry,
yeah, jealous, angry, God,
Temper.
and extraordinarily divisive. So, but that's
exactly.
that's not something I could say in Bible class. I said something close to it and got thrown out. So how then do I, compassionately relate to my family, who literally believes, and my family are Bible literalists. They believe that what the Bible says literally happened. And that's the background I come from.
Do they still try and get you back into the fold?
Oh, they stopped doing that. Certainly,
That's good.
yeah, because, many years of wailing and gnashing of teeth, they gave up. There are friends of my family that I run into who know me, and they immediately launch into trying to get me back. Oh, we haven't seen you at church recently. I'm like 40 years? Well, closer to 50. I'm going, yeah, no, you haven't seen me at church, and you're not ever going to. Unless I still go for special occasions, weddings, funerals, the various things that are going on with the family. But I always, duck my head just for the lightning as I, cross the threshold. But yeah, so if you're dealing with someone who has very deeply embedded beliefs or comes from the environment in which those beliefs come from, how do you help them? How do you minister to them? Because this is not about just being in our little Buddhist bubble. This is about taking care of the entire world and meeting people where they are, just as they are. That's, for me, it's the only reason for penetrating into doing koan study. It's not about passing the koans and getting a different color robe. It's about how I'm going to use this out in the world, in real life, real death, and, real seeking that's going on with people. All right. Anything from the Zoom? Any questions, comments? Questions, comments, you guys? How does this strike you? How will you use this? Go on.
Remain singularly baffled. I can never get any kind of meaning I think I get is no. Yeah. It's some perception and misperception.
Well, even the superficial meanings of just understanding the words, it's not wrong, but it's just not enough. So it's usually, you have to just penetrate a little bit further than just the superficial meaning. Because that's really where it's really that direct experience and how it's expressed. That's more important because it's expressed in, as Dogen put it, in live words. And live words are only alive if they are expressing what is present in the present moment. If it's at all talking about the past or if it's projecting things into the future, those are dead words. And most of the time we talk in dead words because we talk about the past. And really bringing ourselves consistently present is the hard work of this practice. And we, if you're talking about if you've had time to form a narrative about what you're talking about, it's old news. So it can't be answered in a narrative form. But is that not what school taught us? Was how to express ourselves, especially for essay exams. You had to express yourself eloquently in narrative form, and that narrative form has a specific format. You must write in complete sentences. But the here and the now is not complete, and it's constantly changing. So this is a little antithetical to what we're taught in school. Very different from our education system, which is a challenge for most Buddhists, because especially in the United States, the demographic that's attracted to Buddhism are highly educated, upper middle class people who not only are well educated, but have used their education to live their lives. So they're very practiced in that education form. And then breaking themselves out of this is all your fault, teachers, Steve. Breaking ourselves out of that is very difficult because it's worked for us for all these years. It's how we got ahead, how we got through school, how we got through work, how we got promoted, how we got through life, and how we communicate, how we resolve our problems. So now this practice is asking you to do something very different. The experience of the koans is only expressed in live words right here, right now, in this moment. Which is why, Renzai was blatant about it. He was like, ha! That's the answer.
Yeah, brings you in. And that's something I think I appreciate just hearing, and feeling that similar feeling too of bafflement, and you're like, what's going on? Wait a minute. That then puts you in yourself and, forces those cogs to turn a bit. And in contrast to other religions or something that are happy to give you, this is what's going to happen, And
This is the answer.
This is the answer, and having family members like, when you die, it's going to be, I'm hesitant to that. And I think the challenge I come across, or I feel like I encounter in the real world, is when people do have those beliefs, whether it's family, anybody in your community, it's sort of like, do I challenge that? You seem happy knowing your thing. And I guess that depends on the moment too.
Yeah.
How open or accepting thinking about it.
Well, and I think that it's like advice. You don't give advice unless someone asks for it. So if someone isn't challenging, they're in a challenging situation and they need the comfort of their beliefs, can you step into their beliefs and help them through that situation? If they are coming to you challenging their beliefs, that's a different story. So then you can offer up, okay, there are some other ways of thinking about that. But usually people will rely very heavily on their beliefs. They fall back on their beliefs when they're in desperate situations. So, in the middle of an earthquake, it's probably not the time. So, what's the phrase? Read the room,
Exactly.
what's appropriate in that particular moment. And sometimes, and can you express their beliefs with them as a way of healing in that situation. And certainly you're understanding that it's what they need, not necessarily beyond good or bad, beyond truth or false, beyond all of that. That you transcend that in that particular moment, and you're just taking care of what's right there in front of you, how it is presented. So, all right, enough Collins for the day, shall we? Close. Any final comments from the Zoom before we leave? All right, thank you, everybody.